Hello, good day everyone, and welcome back to this channel. In this video, we will be discussing on and we will be talking about the subphylum Vertebrata. So basically, we'll be talking about the biology of the vertebrates, the diagnostic features of the vertebrates, and what are the things that we actually have in this group to call them the vertebrates. In the previous video, we have talked about the subphylum Hemichordata, the subphylum Urochordata, the subphylum Cephalochordata, and we have mentioned the diagnostic features of chordates and the ones that each of these phylums, subphylums, each what they possess. You understand? And we take a biology of a representative. For example, in subphylum Hemichordata, we take Balanoglossus gigas. In subphylum Urochordata, we took Sional intestinalis. In subphylum Hemichordata and Cephalochordata, we take Branchiostoma. So in this, what we just talking about is general biology of the subphylum Vertebrata. So we will now take a representative in each of the classes under the Vertebrata. So let us proceed. The subphylum Vertebrata are animals with vertebral column. That is where they got the name vertebrae. Remember that in the diagnostic features of chordates, I said they have 5 diagnostic features: the notochord, the nerve cord, the endostyle, pharyngeal slit, and postanatal. So the notochord of vertebrates is modified. Remember I told you that it can be modified, it can be obliterated, and it can be retained. So in this case, it is modified into the vertebral column, also known as the backbone. So they possess the backbone or the spine. That is what we have in our back, the backbone or the spine. And they have cranium or skull, so we can call them craniata. They are also known as the subphylum Craniata. You understand? They have cranium, they have head. You understand? Now, the vertebral column surrounds and protects the spinal cord. And remember, the spinal cord is developed from the what? It developed from the nerve cord. Remember I told you that the nerve cord, it becomes modified anteriorly into the brain and posteriorly into spinal cord. So spinal cord developed from the what? Developed from the nerve cord. You understand? And the spinal cord is protected by the vertebral column, while the cranium protects the brain. So we can actually say that we classify them into vertebra because they possess vertebral column that protect the spinal cord, and the cranium as a craniata that possess a skull that protects the brain. So we can say that this structure protects the nerve cord, the modification of nerve cord. Now we have classification of the vertebrates. Now they are under domain Eukaryote, kingdom Animalia, subphylum Deuterostomia. And when they say something is deuterostom, it means they have the anus develops before the mouth. You understand? And they are under the phylum Chordata, the clade Olfactus, and the subphylum Vertebrata. So they are under the subphylum Vertebrata, and this is their classification, hierarchy of their classification. Now let us proceed. This is a typical example of a vertebrate. So a vertebrate are a well-known group of animals that we know very well. This is a lamprey. This is a lamprey. This is a shark. This is a bony fish, and this is a mammal. You understand? This is an elephant. We all know an elephant. So they are group of animals that we know. Even we ourselves, we are under the subphylum Vertebrata. You understand? Where we are under the class Mammalia. So we'll be talking about the classification of them later. Now let us proceed. So it should be noted that at embryonic stage of the vertebrates, they still possess the notochord, nerve cord, pharyngeal slits, post-anal tail, and the endostyle. They still possess all these things. So look at it. This spinal cord developed from the what? From the notochord. The vertebral column. Sorry, the spinal cord developed from the nerve cord, nerve cord. From the nerve cord. The vertebral column from the notochord. And we have the post-anal tail. Can you see the post-anal tail? Because this is the anus. So what comes after the anus? Can you see the pharyngeal slits? This is the pharyngeal slits, and we have the endostyle somewhere around here. You understand? So those are the diagnostic features. We still have these diagnostic features at the embryonic stage, at the embryonic level of their life cycle. So the vertebrates makes up the subphylums Vertebrata, and there are about 65,000 species that has been known under the subphylum Vertebrata. The vertebrates includes the mammals, the birds, amphibians, and various classes of fishes and reptiles. The fish include the jawless Agnatha and the jawed Gnathostomata. So we have under the fish, we have some fishes that has no jaw. I think I've talked about that before. And we have the fishes that possess jaws. So the ones that have no jaws are called the Agnathans, and the ones that have jaw are called the Gnathostom. You understand? Now, the jawed fish include both the cartilaginous fishes and the bony fish. Can you see the way I'm grouping it now? We have a fish. A fish can either be jawless, which is called Agnathans, or Gnathostom. The jawed fish can now be a cartilaginous fish or a bony fish. Now, a bony fish now include the lobe-finned fish, which give rise to tetrapods, that is animal with 4 limbs according to the evolutionary history of vertebrates, which we will talk about later. Now, despite the success of vertebrates, they make up less than 5% of all described animal species, where the phylum Arthropoda takes the largest portion of the number of described species. You understand? So, a vertebrate belongs to the Chordata, a phylum characterized by 5 symphonies. I think I've mentioned that. We have the endostyle, the notochord. Can you see the notochord? The nerve cord, the endostyle, the pharyngeal slits, and the post-anal tail. I think they did not mention that yet, but we have post-anal tail as well. You understand? We have post-anal tail. Can you see that it says 5 synamorphies? That is 5 morphological characteristics. So we have the notochord, the nerve cord, the endostyle, the pharyngeal slit, and the post-anal tail. Now, the vertebrates are now distinguished from all other animals, including chordates themselves. They are distinguished from all other animals by multiple synamorphies, that is multiple morphological characteristics, which include vertebral column, cranium or skull, bone or cartilage, large brain that is divided into 3 or more sections, a maxillary arch with multiple chambers, an inner ear with semicircular canals, sense organ including eyes, ears, nose, digestive organ including liver, intestine, pancreas, and the stomach. So they have different morphological characteristics that differentiate them from all other animals, and these include the vertebral column, skull of bone or cartilage, large brain divided into 3 or more sections, a maxillary arch with multiple chambers, an inner ear with semicircular canals, sense organ including eye, ears, nose, and digestive organ including liver, pancreas, and stomach. So these are the characteristics of the vertebrates that makes them to be distinguished from all other animals on Earth. Now, let us now talk about the evolutionary history. Now, vertebrates originate during the Cambrian explosion, and that is at the start of Paleozoic era, you understand, which saw a rise in animal diversity. The earliest known vertebrates are these biota, you understand, and they live about 518 million years ago. Now, A group of vertebrates under a certain phylogeny, which is a small eel-like conodonts. I did not write it here, but we have something like a small eel-like conodonts. The microfossil of this particular animal was seen. Now, when they saw this microfossil, they saw it with a paired tooth, and a skeleton. Zoologists are now debating if a paired tooth or a hard teeth was arises before the bone, or a bone arises before the what? Before the teeth. But what they later conclude on is that the mineralized skeleton came first, which we don't actually understand that much yet. You understand? Now, the first jawed vertebrates appeared in the late Ordovician period or Ordovician era. That is about 445 million years ago. That is, they became common in the Devonian period, and this Devonian period is known as the age of fishes. You understand? The age of fishes. So this is an example of a Cambrian animal that arose about 580 million years ago, that arises during Cambrian explosion. You understand? And now, on the onset of Mesozoic period, all larger vertebrate groups were devastated after a large mass extinction in Earth history, which we all know that there was an extinction during the dinosaur era where a lot of animals got into extinct. You understand? Now, on the continent, the ancestor of modern lesser amphibian, tortoise, crocodilians, lizards, and mammals appear, as well as dinosaurs, which give rise to birds later in the Mesozoic period. Are you getting me now? Now, at the end of Mesozoic, another extinction occurs, which wipe off all the dinosaurs. You understand? It wipe off all the dinosaurs. Now, this is an example of animal that developed during the what? During the Paleozoic era. You understand? This is an ancient amphibian, Agnatha, that is the name, and it exists around 365 million years ago. You understand? This is an example of a reptile that arises during the Mesozoic era. You understand? They call it Hyperodapidion, and it exists about 230 million years ago. Those are the Triassic era, around 230 million years ago. So it's a dapsid reptiles that exists. So it is Hyperodapton. Now we now have the Cenozoic era. The Cenozoic era is also known as the age of mammals. Because of the dominance of terrestrial environment by that group, placenta of mammals predominantly occupy the northern hemisphere, with marsupial animal in the southern hemisphere. So we have the placenta animals and we have the marsupial animals. Marsupial animals are those animals that put, like kangaroo, that put their babies in a pouch. Placenta animals are those ones that carry their baby and they give birth to it alive. You understand? So the placenta animal occupies the northern hemisphere, and the southern hemisphere is occupied by the marsupial animals. You understand? So this is an example of an early bird, that is Namavis. Namavis is an Hewson bird that exists around 50 million years ago. Around 50 million years ago. You understand? So it's an Hewson bird known as Namavis. Namavis. You understand? Namavis. So this is a chart that shows the evolutionary history of this group of animals. You will see that this is 0 million years ago, 65 million years ago, 145, 201, and you see these jawless fishes. Can you see that they started arising during the Cambrian period? You understand? So they become dominant during this time. and they almost going to extinct during this time, you understand, but they are still what, they are still present. But we have some group of animals called the placodons. They arises during the Silurian period, and during the late Devonian period and the early Carboniferous period they went into extinct, you understand. The cartilaginous species arise during the Devonian period, you understand, but they become dominant during the Permian period and the Cretaceous period, right? So we have the spiny shark, which become extinct during the Carboniferous period, and we have them like that, like that, like that. But what you just have to notice there is that the amphibians, the reptiles, and the mammals, it is around 65 million years ago that they become dominant. You understand? They become dominant around 65 million years ago. Now, let's now talk about the convention evolutionary taxonomy groups extant. What you just have to note here is just that we want to classify subphylum Vertebrata. What are the classification? This is the classification of subphylum Vertebrata. Basically, we have the vertebrates can be divided into two. That is the Agnathan. I think I've mentioned this before. The Agnathans and the Gnathostom. So the Agnathans are jawless fish. An example of them is lamprey and hagfish. An example of them is lamprey and hagfish. While the Gnathostom, under the Gnathostom, we now have different class. You understand? We have the chondrochites. Let me just use CH as an example. Chondrochites. We have the ostechites. Chondrochites are cartilaginous fishes. Ostechites are bony fishes. We have the amphibians, AMP. We have the reptiles, REP. We have the aves, AV, and we have the mammals, MAM. So the chondrochites, they are cartilaginous fishes. Ostechites are bony fishes. Amphibians, they are the ones that can live on land and on water. Reptiles, they are the ones that are predominantly on land, but they have their own characteristics as well. Aves and mammals. So we are going to be taking the biology of a representative group of each of these, and we are going to be starting with Agnathans. And under Agnathans, we'll be taking a representative, and the representative will be taken under the Agnathans is the lamprey. Lamprey, which is a active blood sucking fish. You understand? It's an active blood sucking fish, and it is characterized by having no jaw. They have no jaws, hence they are what? They are jawless. That is why they call them Agnathans. They are Agnathans because they have no jaw. You understand? So this is the classification, and this one is showing a chart of the group, the total number of species that has been described. Remember I told that we have about 65,000 species of vertebrates that has been described. So if you check this one very well, if you check it, we have 66,178 species, which is very, very close. So we are saying approximately 65, because if you can see very well, we are saying greater than and less than here. So it can be greater than, it can be less than. We don't have a fixed number yet, you understand? So that is what we are having here. So in this case, you're seeing Myxine, which is hagfish, Hypiota, which is lamprey, the chondrochites. You see Actinopterygii and Sarcopterygii, they are under the ostechites, the amphibians, the reptilia, mammals, and the aves. You understand? So that is what you're having here. So in the next video, we'll be talking about the biology of a representative Agnathan, which is the lamprey. Thank you so much for listening, and subscribe for more. Thank you.